Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell y'all something right now. Sometimes life comes full circle in a single text message. And I ain't talking about no paragraph, no essay, no desperate attempt to explain yourself. Nope, I'm talking about that one text. The one that hits a man right in the place where he never expected it, his soul. That one text ain't about revenge, it's about reclaiming your power. See, people get confused when a woman finds her voice after heartbreak. They think you're trying to get even. They assume you're bitter. But what they don't understand is when you've cried every tear you could possibly cry, when you've had conversations with God in the middle of the night asking why, when you've had to pull yourself up out of a bed that felt like a grave, you don't come out of that looking for revenge. You come out of that looking for yourself. And that's exactly what that one text represents. It ain't meant to tear him down. It's meant to build you back up. Because when you hurt, the first instinct is to stay silent. You sit with your pain. You try to make sense of it. You go through those moments where you wonder if you should have tried harder, if maybe it was your fault, if maybe you weren't enough. And the worst part, you go through all of that while they move on like nothing happened, like you were just a stop on their journey, while they were the whole destination in yours. And that silence, that's what breaks most women. That's what keeps them stuck. But one day, after all the sleepless nights, after all the unanswered questions, after you finally look in the mirror and see the woman you forgot was even there, you feel something different. You feel power coming back into your chest. You feel clarity. You don't want closure anymore. You don't want the apology. You don't want to know why he did what he did. Because now your peace means more than any explanation ever could. That's the moment that one text is born. It's not about reminding him who you are. It's about reminding you who you are. You don't write it with anger. You write it with peace. You don't write it hoping he'll respond. You write it knowing you won't care if he does. That's the power. That's what he'll feel. That's why it'll hit his soul. Because let me tell you something, fellas notice when the energy changes. They feel it when the one who used to chase no longer even checks. They sense the shift when the woman who used to beg for attention starts giving it to herself. They might not say it out loud, but they see it. And when that message comes through, the one that don't ask for anything, the one that don't explain nothing, the one that's short, calm, and real, they know that ain't just a text. That's the final door closing. That's the sound of a woman who once waited, now walking away. He might read it and get angry. He might get confused, or he might sit in silence too, finally feeling what he made you feel. But that ain't your concern anymore. Because again, this text ain't about him. It's about you. It's about choosing yourself over and over again until the pain no longer speaks louder than your purpose. And when a woman sends that kind of message, that quiet, powerful kind of truth, it don't just hit his phone, it hits his soul. Because he'll realize what he lost, and you'll realize what you found, you. Pain makes you quiet, but healing gives you a voice. See, when a woman's heart gets broken, she don't always scream. She don't always throw things or curse his name. No, sometimes the deepest pain shows up in silence, that quiet kind of suffering where you smile in public and cry behind closed doors, where you answer, "I'm fine," when your whole world feels like it's falling apart. That's the kind of pain I'm talking about, the kind that takes your breath away, that keeps you up at night, that makes you question everything about yourself. And in that season, you don't have a voice, not because you don't want to speak, but because you don't even know what to say. You keep it all inside. You hold back the tears at work. You replay every conversation in your head, trying to figure out when the shift happened. You ask yourself, was it me? Was I too much? Was I not enough? You silence your own truth just so you don't come off as dramatic or emotional. You don't want to seem like you're begging or broken, so you stay quiet. That's what pain does. It shuts you down. But healing is something else. Healing is when you start to speak again, when your voice starts coming back, not loud, not angry, but steady, calm, and rooted in truth. Healing is when you no longer need someone to validate your pain because you've already accepted it. Healing is when your story doesn't make you cry anymore, it just makes you stronger. That's when your voice returns. That's when you find yourself saying things you never had the courage to say before, not because you want to hurt someone, but because you finally stopped hurting. That one text you send, that's your voice. That's the sound of your healing. You ain't writing it from a place of desperation. You're writing it from a place of restoration. It may be just one line, maybe a few words, but every letter is packed with everything you held back during the silence. That's what makes it powerful. That's why it hits so hard, because it ain't just a message, it's your truth wrapped up in peace. You're not trying to win him back. You're not trying to prove anything. You're just finally speaking for yourself. And here's the truth about men. Sometimes they don't hear you when you cry. They don't hear you when you ask. They don't hear you when you beg. But they hear you real clear when you go quiet, work on yourself, then come back speaking with strength and clarity. That one text, that one simple message, that's when they realize you ain't the same woman who stayed up waiting for their call. That's when they feel the shift in your energy. You ain't broken anymore. You're whole. And the beautiful thing, that voice you lost in the pain is now the same voice that set you free. You found it in the healing. And now when you speak with purpose. You speak for that version of you who didn't know how to walk away. You speak for the you that deserved better and now knows better. That one text is not revenge, it's not drama, it's not petty. It's you finding your voice again and using it for the very first time in the name of your own peace. Don't text him to make him miss you. Text him to remind him you've outgrown him. See, a lot of people got this idea that texting him after a breakup is about getting a reaction. They think if they say the right thing, he'll come running back. They try to trigger his guilt, poke his pride, make him feel what they felt. But that's not healing. That's a trap. Because when you start moving from your pain instead of your peace, you keep yourself stuck in a cycle that's already shown you it ain't meant for you. When you've been hurt by someone you love deeply, your first instinct might be to try and win them back, or at least remind them of what they lost. You might dress up your pain and confidence, hit send on a carefully crafted message, and then sit by the phone hoping for a reply that proves you still matter to them. But let me tell you something. If you have to ask for your worth, you're already giving it away. Outgrowing someone doesn't always look loud. It don't always come with block numbers and long paragraphs. Sometimes it's one quiet message that says everything. Not to beg, not to impress, just to declare with grace, I'm not the same woman who used to cry over you. That's real power. That's maturity. That's growth. You don't send that text hoping he chases you. You send it because you stopped chasing him. Emotionally, mentally, spiritually. You're not in that place anymore. You've done the crying. You've had the sleepless nights. You've replayed every moment and every word in your mind. But now you see it for what it really was. And even though it broke your heart, it built your wisdom. That's the kind of growth that don't need loud announcements. It just shows up in your peace. So when that message goes out, it ain't for his validation. It's a mark of your evolution. You don't need his attention. You don't need his apology. You just need to stand in your truth long enough to realize he never knew what to do with someone like you in the first place. And that's okay. Because not everyone is meant to walk with you once you've elevated. Some folks are only compatible with the version of you that doubted herself, that stayed quiet, that didn't know how valuable she really was. When you send that text, you're not trying to reignite an old flame. You're closing a door. You're not waiting on his next move. You're making yours. And whether he reads it or not, whether he replies or leaves it on read, it don't even matter, because this time it ain't about the outcome, it's about the release. That's what outgoing feels like. It feels like peace, clarity, and self-respect, all wrapped into a few simple words. And maybe he'll feel it. Maybe it'll hit him late at night when everything is quiet and nobody's around. Maybe it'll catch him off guard while he's scrolling through old photos or memories pop up on his phone. But that's not your business anymore. The only thing that matters is that you finally see yourself, you see what you were willing to give, how deeply you were willing to love, and how much you were willing to forgive. And now you see that same energy deserves to be poured back into you. So no, don't text him to pull him back into your life. Text him to remind yourself that you no longer need to. That message isn't your bait, it's your boundary. It's not for attention, it's for freedom. And once you've outgrown someone, trust me, there's no going back to what you had. Because once you know better, you do better. And that one text, that's proof you finally do. You don't need closure from the person who broke you. You need peace from within. Now, let me talk to the folks in the back who's still waiting on that text, that apology, that, hey, can we talk? You sit there thinking, if he could just explain why he did what he did, maybe you'd feel better. Maybe it would finally make sense. But let me tell you something, baby. Closure ain't something they give you. It's something you decide to take. See, we've been taught that healing needs a final conversation. Like somebody who hurt you is supposed to come back and walk you through your pain. But how can you expect peace from the same person who handed you chaos? How you gonna ask a man who shattered your heart to come help you pick up the pieces? He ain't got the map to your healing. He's the reason you need it in the first place. Closure's a trap when it depends on someone else. It's a delay disguised as hope. You keep waiting for that call that never comes, that explanation that never makes it all right. But real growth starts when you stop asking, why did he do me like that? And start asking, why did I stay so long after he did? And that's when you get your power back, not from his answers, but from your own reflection. Let me break it down for you. Closure isn't a conversation, it's a decision. It's waking up one day and realizing that your healing is too important to be held hostage by someone else's silence. It's saying to yourself, even if I never hear from him again, I still deserve peace. It's not about getting even, it's about getting free. That's what true closure looks like. When you send that one text, it's not to reopen the door, it's to seal it shut. Not to ask him why, but to let him know you've stopped wondering. Because silence from someone who hurt you can be loud. It echoes in your thoughts. It lingers in your heart. But that one message you send, that's you silencing the noise. That's you closing a chapter he never had the courage to end properly. He might have ghosted you. He might have lied to you. He might have left without saying a word. And you carried that pain alone like a backpack full of bricks. But the day you choose to say, I'm done carrying this, that's the day you get lighter, you get stronger. And you don't need him to understand why you're done. You don't need him to admit what he did. You just need to love yourself enough to stop needing anything from someone who gave you so little in the first place. And listen, I know it's hard. I know some of y'all are sitting there thinking, but Steve, if I could just tell him how bad he hurt me, maybe he'd see it. Maybe he'd change. But even if he did see it, even if he did feel bad, what then? Would it fix the nights you cried? Would it undo the damage? Or would it just keep you tangled up in something you've already outgrown? Nah, baby, your healing ain't about making him feel bad. It's about making you feel whole. That's why you send that one text. Not to ask, not to beg, not to hope. You send it to release yourself from needing anything more from him. You send it for peace. You send it for closure, but not his kind. Your kind. The kind that don't come with explanations. The kind that comes with letting go. A powerful woman knows silence can be a message, but so can truth. Now listen, I know there's an old saying that silence speaks volumes, and it's true. Sometimes not saying anything is the loudest thing you can do, but let me go a step further. There comes a point in a woman's journey where silence is no longer enough, where silence held you for a while, helped you stay composed, gave you your space to heal, but now it's time to speak, not for him, not for attention, but for you. Because sometimes the truth has to be said out loud before it can truly set you free. You see, a woman who's been hurt deeply knows both sides of the story, the version she lived and the version she never got to tell. She kept things quiet for too long. She didn't defend herself when people misunderstood her. She didn't correct the lies, didn't clear the rumors. She just let the pain sit there while everybody else moved on like nothing happened. But she knew. She carried it. And in that silence, she grew. She learned how to keep her head up when her heart was dragging on the floor. She learned how to smile when she was breaking inside. That's the kind of silence that builds a different kind of woman. One who's unshakable. One who doesn't need validation. One who ain't afraid of being misunderstood because now she understands herself. But eventually, the silence becomes too tight. And the truth, that becomes her freedom song. That's why she sends that one message, not out of anger, not out of pain, but because her truth deserves to breathe. It's not about blaming, it's about releasing. It might be just one sentence. Maybe something like, "You never saw me, but I finally see myself," or "I let go, not because I didn't care, but because I finally do." And that simple truth, that hits different. Because when a woman finally speaks after being quiet for so long, her words carry weight. See, fellas don't always recognize the quiet woman. They don't take her silence seriously. They think she's waiting, hoping, still checking her phone, but they don't see the shift. They don't see that while she was quiet, she was healing. While she wasn't talking, she was leveling up. While she wasn't responding, she was rebuilding. And when she finally does speak, when she finally hits send on that one text, it's not to get a reply. It's to release everything she never said. It takes real power to speak your truth without needing anything back. No reply, no apology, no reaction. Just the clarity that comes from saying, this is how it really was for me. And I'm not going to carry that story in silence anymore. Because silence is strong. But the truth is sacred. The truth is healing. And when a woman shares her truth, not to hurt, but to heal, that's when you know she stepped into her power. So don't ever think that one message is small. It's a statement. It's not just about him reading it. It's about you writing it. It's about finally standing in the light after sitting in the dark for too long. It's about making peace with your past by telling your side, even if it's just to yourself, because your voice matters. Your story matters. And you don't have to scream it, but you do have to honor it. That one text, that's your truth. Walking out the door with his head held high. That's you finally choosing to be heard, not by him, but by your own soul. And baby, when a woman reaches that point, ain't no going back. She don't need to be silent anymore. She's not bitter. She's just finally free enough to speak. That one message is not for him. It's your final release for you. Let me tell you something. Sometimes people think the power is in getting the last word, but real power is in choosing what words even deserve your energy in the first place. And when a woman sends that one final text, it's not about shaking his world.